What's up, everybody? Good Monday night and Happy New Year to you. Not going live today, just talking about Mississippi State's win in the ReliaQuest Bowl, the ReliaQuest Bowl. It's always going to be the Outback Bowl to me. Either way, just spent 3 hours on the radio talking about it. Going to do that again here with you tonight. Of course, my name is Michael Borky. Always glad that you guys are with me. My apologies for not being live for this one. Just some recorded thoughts. Not feeling 100%, honestly, so I'm just going to get through it. Got to talk about it, though, because it was a significant win for Mississippi State. So we'll start with there. I've got a few thoughts for you. I've got 5 thoughts. We'll call it that. 5 thoughts from Mississippi State's 19-10 win over Illinois. Really kind of 13-10, but hey, the scoreboard says 19-10, and that's what matters. Before we really dive into it, though, please subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Also, like the video if you have not already. I would appreciate that very much. Inching closer and closer to my sub goal of 1,000. So thank all of you for watching and subscribing and liking the video. All right, thought number 1, it's the ReliaQuest Bowl. It is not, certainly not a bad bowl game. The Outback Bowl has been a relatively prestigious bowl game for quite some time now. It matters. It's especially for a team from Mississippi, which, not to degrade the teams in the state in which I cover, but the Outback Bowl is a good season for the history or lack thereof that we have. But in this case, the ReliaQuest Bowl isn't exactly an important win. However, but it's a fitting way and a really satisfying way for Mississippi State to end what has been a pretty terrible 4 or 5 weeks or so for the program. It's been a horrible month for Mississippi State. So to cap that off with the win in this game is a really cool way to end and kind of put a bow on what has been a really unprecedented time for a college football program. So not necessarily important, but you still go into an offseason now with a new regime, for the most part anyway, a new head coach, but you're coming off of a 9-win season. You get a bunch of guys back on defense. You'll return your quarterback. More on that in a second. You return some wide receiver help as well. The majority of your roster is coming back, and a schedule that sets up pretty well for Mississippi State as well next year. So you get to build some momentum into next season as well. But more importantly to me, it's the way that this unfortunate transition, which I guess is what we'll call it, it ending the way it did, I thought was really cool and really significant for Mississippi State. I'm really happy for Will Rogers. That's thought number 2 is you could see the emotion at the end of the game on the sidelines. You could see the emotion at Mike Leach's memorial service there on campus in Starkville. Mike Leach very clearly meant a lot to the quarterback at Mississippi State. There's no doubt he meant a lot. And for obvious reasons. I mean, Mike Leach is why Will Rogers not only is a starting quarterback in the SEC, but a record-breaking one at this point. And to see after the game ended, after the Biscardi field goal went through, to see his emotions, I thought was really telling about, 1, what Mike Leach meant to him, 2, what that game meant to him as well. And it wasn't a great start for Will Rogers. Quite frankly, he was pretty bad in the first half. Had a couple of interceptions. One was some kind of miscommunication down there at the goal line. The other was just a really bad decision on his part. And State went into the locker room down, and a lot of it, I think a lot of it had to do with the play of Will Rogers, but he was much more efficient in the second half. And that had to have felt really good for him too. And again, you saw the emotion, but not trying to read his mind or anything, but you knew that felt really good to come out in the second half and play the way he did. I don't know if Mississippi State wins the game if he doesn't correct some of those things, settle into the game a little bit. Didn't make any mistakes, at least as far as I could see in the second half, and played much, much better. So I'm very happy for Will Rogers. Clearly emotional, understandably so, for him to get a win. Despite the first half, playing better in the second half, I thought was a cool thing to see. But now we start talking about Zach Arnett, right? That was his first game as the head coach of Mississippi State. But if we're being honest, that was not a Zach Arnett team. That was not a Zach Arnett win, I don't think. And here's what I mean by that. Now is when the Zach Arnett era starts at Mississippi State. The last few weeks for him has been exclusively, in my opinion, about just getting through. I mean, think about when he found out that he was going to be the next head coach at Mississippi State. It was, okay, hey Zach, you're the head coach now. Unexpectedly, a few days ago, the head coach tragically passed away. Now it's your job. And oh, by the way, signing day is just a few days away. So good luck. And also, the transfer portal's open. Try to keep your roster together. And oh, by the way, in a few weeks, you've got a bowl game. There was nothing that he could have done in the last few weeks that was putting his staple on the program, if that makes sense. What this was just maintaining, getting through the bowl game, getting through the ceremonies, getting through the heartbreak that is losing a head coach, getting through signing day, trying to preserve the class as much as possible. And by the way, they closed really well, getting through the first round before the dead period of transfer portal stuff, getting through bowl preparation, getting through this game. Now it becomes Zach Arnett's program, but that's not taking away from what just happened the last few weeks. You cannot be anything but super impressed with the way this was handled at Mississippi State by Zach Arnett in a truly unprecedented time. I mean, a coach passing with a game left to play in the portal era, in the early signing day era, is an unprecedented thing. You know, we talked about what happened at Northwestern, but that was in the summer, and that was long before early signing period and things like that. So college football has changed pretty dramatically since the last time something like this has happened. And Zach Arnett not only kept the recruiting class largely intact, but added a couple or three, one especially high-quality player during that time. They've portaled well so far. Got especially one Mississippi guy to come back despite leaving the state in his early recruitment. A blue chip player when he left to go to Miami. He's now back at Mississippi State, and they win the bowl game. You could not be more impressed with what Zach Arnett has done over the last few weeks, but his clock begins now. And truthfully, and you're already seeing some reporting about it, it sounds like we're going to get some news relatively soon, maybe even as early as tomorrow, as I record this on Monday night. There's a chance we're going to get some news about staff hires, not just staff terminations, but wholesale changes are seemingly coming offensively for Mississippi State. And there are so many questions that are soon going to be answered, and so many more that we're going to have to wait until the season actually begins. But what is a Zach Arnett coached football team? What is their offensive identity? What does he want it to be? I assume because he's a defensive guy and has been the defensive coordinator for 3 years at Mississippi State, that he's going to hire somebody to kind of run things, but he is still the head coach, and it has to be done somewhat in his vision. So what does he want that vision to be? What does he want his offensive identity for his football program to be? I would be willing to bet it's not the exact same thing you've seen over the last 3 years for many reasons, one of which is there's not another Mike Leach out there. So don't go looking for him because he doesn't exist. But what does he think about the current state of the offense? What would he want his team's offensive identity to be? What does he think about things like the tight end position? Because if he wants his team to have tight ends, then that changes the dynamic of his staff and how he hires them. Well, what does he think about his quarterback? Does he believe that Will Rogers is the guy moving forward? Or better yet, when he hires an offensive coordinator, which apparently is coming soon, what does the offensive coordinator think about Will Rogers? Is it going to be a situation where he can plug and play right into this new system, or is there going to be a guy in the portal that they may want to go after that fits more of what the new OC wants to do? There are so many questions, some of which will be answered with who they hire and what is said about the hire, and can possibly what they do in the transfer portal. And then we're going to have to wait until the spring, and more importantly, until the games begin, to know exactly what that's going to look like. But I believe wholesale changes are coming offensively for Mississippi State, and I think that they are needed. You saw it at multiple points this season. I think moving forward, Mississippi State was going to have to do some kind of adapting. You saw in the Egg Bowl towards the end of the season, or at least a couple of times this season, when Mississippi State focused on running the football, they had more success. So regardless of what's happened over the last few weeks, I do think that Mississippi State was going to have to do something to make changes some changes, whether they're gigantic or small, but some adjustments offensively, because there were too many games like Kentucky. There were too many games like today. They've had no success really scoring against Alabama. They had a period of nothing against a bad Auburn team offensively. Something was going to have to be adjusted here. And not knowing what Zach Arnett wants, we don't know how big or small they're going to be, but adjustments were going to need to happen. I expect them to happen. Some of the reporting tonight has kind of indicated that that is going to be the case. And it doesn't make, when you say things need to change, it doesn't mean that there was necessarily something super wrong with the way you were doing it before. But this is Zach Arnett's program now. I was talking to somebody over the weekend that said that they hope that Mississippi State hires a Leach disciple to keep the air raid going in honor of him. And my response was, you don't make staff hires and you don't pick offensive philosophies based on something like that. As cool as that would be, and maybe that's what Zach Arnett wants, we shall see. It's got to be his program now, and everything moving forward has got to be only what he wants and nothing more. And I don't know how many people actually feel that way, but I was talking to a State fan over the weekend that mentioned that. So changes are coming. Changes are expected. We're going to see very quickly what kind of identity Zach Arnett wants to implement into his program, especially offensively. And a fascinating offseason is upcoming for sure. This is going to be the first time in quite some time that spring practice is actually interesting at Mississippi State, because you've had an established coach and an established quarterback. And despite people wanting there to be a quarterback competition going into the season, there definitely was not, and there wasn't going to be one regardless, but people wanted it to be kind of manufacturing drama almost. Now it gets interesting because it's a new coach, it's a new philosophy, it's a new mindset, it's going to be a new offense, a new system. Now we are entering a very fascinating offseason for Mississippi State. But again, to recap, was not an important win, but a really nice way to end this unfortunate month or so in Starkville. It says a lot about your coach with how this has been handled, but we're going to see what his program really looks like starting now. Today is when Zach Arnett's clock starts, but so far, with the way this has gone, you've gotten a really good look into what the program is going to look like with him. So, fitting way to end it. Really happy for Will Rogers. This was not a Zach Arnett team yet, but you should be really encouraged with how this was handled. Wholesale changes are coming and needed offensively, and the most interesting offseason in some time. I mean, really since when Mike Leach took over. But remember, that was the COVID season, so we really didn't get to fully appreciate the lead up to Mike Leach being the head coach at Mississippi State, because the world was on fire there for a little while. So the most football fascinating offseason we've gotten in at least 3 years, but because everybody was distracted, it may even be longer, all the way out to Moorhead's first year. So looking forward to seeing that. Thank you guys so much. Quick thoughts again. Sorry I didn't go live, but that's okay. You will forgive me. I'll be back Thursday. What day is Thursday? Thursday the 5th is when I'll be live next, 7:45. I will see you guys then. Appreciate you watching, and I'll talk to you on Thursday night.